Halloween Horror Nights' 32nd year with a record-breaking 48 nights of eerie experiences. Encounter a chaotic circus, the legendary Dr. Oddfellow, and a dark history of Universal attractions.
First of all, before we get into this, I am super excited for this event, and I have no idea how these houses will turn out. Not only is it okay to have a different opinion than me, but this list might wildly change after I go through the houses. Oh, and thank you, Universal, for removing the Scream Squad stuff from the house descriptions. Trust me, it sounds 1,000 times better. Anyway, this is my pre-HHN opinions of the houses and scare zones from worst to best.
In the 1930s Dust Bowl era, guests won't be able to resist going inside Dr. Oddfellow's menacing menagerie of twisted oddities, where they'll encounter grotesquely distorted animals and freakish fiends in Dr. Oddfellow's twisted origins. The price to enter this creepy caravan is steep as souls feed his immortal power.
I know a lot of people...
Bruh.
I know a lot of people are looking forward to Oddfellow this year, but I'm not actually familiar with them. I like the carnival in the middle of nowhere, but other than that, it still doesn't sound that interesting.
The catacombs of Paris house a much darker secret beneath the bustling streets, as the all-new haunted house Universal Monsters Unmasked takes guests down into the infamous burial grounds. Deep within the catacombs, Universal's most notorious creatures, the Phantom, the Hunchback, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and the Invisible Man, lie in wait for unsuspecting guests.
This one ranks higher than Oddfellow because I'm more familiar with the Universal Monsters, but it doesn't rank any higher because it's not that interesting. I'm not sure how they're going to do the Invisible Man, and wasn't he a good guy?
No, he killed a bunch of people.
Oh, he killed a bunch of people? Never mind. Last year's Monsters was confusing, so I hope they learned something from that. Anyways, moving on.
In a 1950s campground, a group of towering, terrifying Yetis are running rampant, ripping apart campers, rangers, and anyone who gets in their way. In Yeti, Campground Kills, guests must flee through the campground into cabins, a bait shack, and even the outhouse in hopes of making it to the ranger tower before it's too late.
I just don't think Yetis are Halloween Horror Nightsy. You know, I think Yeti, I think Bigfoot, then I think Harry and Lee Henderson's, and then I think apes. It's just not scary. I know, everybody loved the Yeti house from 2019, so that gets up my hopes a little bit. It ranks higher than the other ones because I like the forest setting. It could be good, it could be not.
Villagers begin to worship the moon obsessively. When the blood moon rises at their fall festival, guests will need to tread carefully to avoid becoming part of the sacrifice, as they gather body parts to form a grisly offering in blood moon dark offerings.
I heard this one is going to be gory. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I like the idea of them worshiping the moon with sacrifices. Last year they did a similar house, Chupacabra, and with them worshiping the Chupacabra and killing people for them. It. And I really like that house, except for the smell. In my mind, I see a blood moon, red lighting, and I think it could be a really solid house.
Amidst the Mississippi Delta, blues artist Pine Straw Spruce encounters the Collector at the crossroads. A sinister pact is struck, his soul in exchange for musical stardom. Attendees will watch his meteoric rise and his subsequent descent to Hades, with fellow musicians who also paid the haunting price of fame in The Darkest Deal.
I like that it's based on the true story of Robert Johnson. Okay, the legend of Robert Johnson. I like the classic story of the deal with the devil, and I'm interested in the house and the music. I can imagine a stage with pine straw playing on it, and I wonder how they're going to represent Hades and the Collector.
the great wizard Merlin has been transformed into the enchanted oak, leaving a power vacuum. When two powerful warlocks invade his castle to steal his spellbook, they are turned into dragons of fire and ice. Now guests are caught in the middle of their battle and are forced to choose a path and a victor. But beware, no one knows who will win in Dueling Dragons. Choose thy fate.
I hear this house will be a dual run, with each run having a different ending. Based on that description, I assume a different dragon wins each night, and each one will reflect a good or bad ending based on who you choose. But that's just my opinion. I heard they have puppets just like Chupacabra, but will they have static props, screens, or a combination of both? I'm excited because of the choices, not the dragons, which aren't scary, and I think it's kind of weird that it's based off the old ride. From what I've seen, it's gonna look like the original queue, and I like that. Okay, for the top 4 houses, they're going to be IPs, much to the chagrins of my father, who is an originals guy. But I just like established IPs and the amount of effort put into them. So without further ado, number 4.
In The Exorcist Believer, guests are transported to a bustling street market, where the purchase of a strange doll leads to the opening of a demonic portal and the subsequent disappearance of two 12-year-old girls. Found 3 days later, they start to exhibit unsettling behavior. It is clear that only an exorcism can save them, and everyone who encounters them is at a risk of losing their souls.
I've never seen The Exorcist, but it looks interesting, and I think it will be cool to have it as a house. That said, I don't really know much about it, except pea soup and swear words. That's why it's at the bottom of my top 4.
Inspired by the hit USA and sci-fi series and the cult classic films, Chucky, Ultimate Kill Count, casts this killer doll as the star of his very own haunted house for the first time. A true sadistic killer, Chucky has been mired in the agony of disrespect he feels from his peers at not being taken seriously. Thus begins his quest to turn his haunted house into a living slaughterhouse by killing every person who enters.
I recently watched the original Chucky, but this is based on the sci-fi show, which I haven't watched. I heard this will have puppets too, and it will be very gory. I don't know how I feel about that. I like the original house, and I also like doll movies.
House?
Megan.
House? You like the original movie.
I said movie.
You said house.
No, I said movie.
You said house.
I said movie.
You said
I said
house.
movie.
You said I like the original house.
Ah.
Instant replay.
I like the original house.
Go ahead.
I like the original Chucky movie, and I have a thing for doll movies. Megan.
Exactly. Like you're coughing it. Megan.
You sound like Bert.
Bert?
Patrick.
SpongeBob!
Megan. Megan. Like that?
Yeah,
Megan.
exactly.
I like the original Chucky, and I have a thing for doll movies. Megan. And...
You didn't even do it. Okay.
1 hour later.
I like the original Chucky, and you know I have a thing about doll movies. Megan. So I'm pretty jazzed about it. Side note, it's not good marketing to tell everybody you're gonna kill them when they go through the house. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. Whatever, it's Chucky!
For the first time ever, the award-winning game The Last of Us comes to life in an all-new haunted house. Guests join a brutal journey in a world overtaken by a fungal virus that turns humans into a new threat known as the Infected. Guests will find themselves navigating iconic locations from the video game in a desperate attempt to escape and survive.
This is based off the game, which my dad played. It sounds really interesting. I also watched the first episode of the show, and I really liked it. I'm really looking forward to seeing the clickers. They sound really creepy. Actually, I have a theory. They wanted this last year, but couldn't get the rights. That's why we got Descendants, which was pretty forgettable. I like abandoned settings. That's why it's so high on my list. But who knows? It might turn out forgettable like Descendants. Anyway, Who could have guessed? My highest house is Stranger Things!
Stranger Things 4 is brought to life in a terrifying all-new haunted house that transports guests to Hawkins, where they will be immersed in the Upside Down for a heart-pounding experience. Guests will come face to face with otherworldly creatures like Dimobats and even Vecna in a race against the clock to escape and save mankind from his deadly curse.
I absolutely love Stranger Things, and I was 5 when the first house came out, and I've been dying to experience it. I went to the experience in Atlanta and loved that. While I don't think this will live up to the interactive experience, I know Universal will spare no expense. I'm excited to see Eddie, the Demobats, and Vecna, and you know I'll be singing, "Chrissy, wake up!" Overall, this is a very exciting lineup of houses, but we aren't done yet. Hold on a second. What? Anyway, we're doing this best to worst.
Jungle of Doom Expedition Horror. In the 1920s, Dr. Oddfellow ventured deep into the darkest jungle, performing horrific experiments on nature. Now, his monstrous creatures are running amok and on the hunt.
Central Park is a favorite of mine because of the atmosphere, and I like the jungle setting. It's unique. I never seen it before. I heard that JP Extinction in the Jungle of Doom was in the jungle setting, but it was way before my time. I like both of the scare zones I saw there, and Scarecrows was my favorite one, so I expect a lot from this one.
Dr. Oddfellow's Collection of Horror. Dr. Oddfellow will lure guests into Halloween Horror Nights with a promise of immortality. As he lifts the veil on all the horrors to come, they'll soon realize they may not even survive the night.
The Pumpkin Lord from last year was really good. This sounds like the same kind of idea. Although, thanks to the new Minions ride, it pushed the scare zone right up front. So I don't know how that will be, but I think it's going to be Oddfellow taunting guests in a carnival setting.
Dr. Oddfellow has entered a dark dimension to harness the power of the Zodiac and live forever. He twists the signs into malevolent beings who foretell one's doom. As his star rises, yours falls.
I saw the Singapore version online, and I imagine it will be similar, but with Oddfellow and toned down a bit. I like the idea of the Zodiac monsters, and if Orlando does half of what Singapore did, it could be awesome.
Shipyard 32. Horrors Unhinged. Enter a 1940s San Francisco shipping yard full of mysterious crates and cages bearing Dr. Oddfellow's symbol. Beware, his nightmarish oddities have now escaped, spreading fear and chaos in their wake.
It doesn't really sound that exciting. It just sounds like a shipyard full of crates in San Francisco, which is a problem because it's always crowded. I imagine a maze-like setup, and the characters are jumping out and scaring you from the crates. But because of the crowds, there's probably just going to be a few set pieces. I hope I'm wrong, but I guess we'll see.
Vamp 69, Summer of Blood. At a 1960s music fest in a small New York town, guests will jam to popular bands with fellow concertgoers until Dr. Oddfellow unleashes vicious vampires on the audience that are out for blood.
I just don't think vampires are that scary, and they already did in 2019. This will definitely be the party area, but everybody loved it in 2019, so I'll keep an open mind.
Megan.
What do we say about Megan? It went from a scare zone to a horde and to a photo op. But I'm still excited for it. This is my second most anticipated thing for this year. And my first anticipated, Stranger Things! But if she is there, I will do the dance with her.
Nightmare Fuel Revenge Dream. The show that sparked the darkest of dreams has reignited. Nightmares burn out of control as pyro and aerial performers fire guests up to the beat of metal and electronica.
Oh, nightmare fuel. Like I said before, it has a lot of leather and it's very risque. My biggest problem would be if they don't change the show very much. They've done this for a while now, and it's getting old. But if they have new material, it would be more interesting. Overall, I am very excited for this year. Just having Stranger Things there makes my ear. I'm very excited for the originals. I know. All my top ones are IPs, but I kind of know what to expect from them. As I said before, this list will absolutely change completely. That's the fun of Halloween Horror Nights. Tune back in soon to see my full review. Until then, thanks for watching.